The atomic bomb wasn't invented by one person in one moment. It emerged from decades of physics breakthroughs scattered across Europe and America, then weaponized in a desert in New Mexico during the most desperate war humanity had ever fought. But here's what most people miss. The nuclear club didn't grow because countries independently figured out the science. It grew because knowledge leaked, spies operated, allies shared, and nations made brutal calculations about survival. So let's trace exactly how each nuclear power actually built their arsenal, because the real story is far messier than any official history admits. The American program succeeded because the United States vacuumed up European Jewish physicists fleeing fascism. Einstein, Fermi, Teller, Szilard, these weren't Americans. They were refugees who understood that Hitler might be building a bomb first. The Manhattan Project cost $2 billion in 1940s money, employed over 130,000 people, and operated in absolute secrecy. They built entire cities that didn't appear on maps. Oak Ridge in Tennessee and Hanford in Washington processed uranium and plutonium on industrial scales never attempted before. Los Alamos became the design laboratory where Oppenheimer coordinated the actual weapon construction. Two bomb designs emerged. Little Boy used uranium-235 in a gun-type mechanism so simple they never tested it before Hiroshima. Fat Man used plutonium-239 in an implosion design so complex they had to detonate Trinity in the desert first. It worked. August 1945 ended the war and began the nuclear age. The Soviets were 4 years behind, but they had help nobody talks about. Klaus Fuchs was a German physicist at Los Alamos who believed capitalism was a greater threat than Stalin. He passed detailed bomb designs to Soviet handlers throughout the war. David Greenglass and Theodore Hall did the same. American intelligence didn't catch most of these leaks until after the Soviets tested their first device in August 1949. Stalin's program was run by Lavrenti Beria, the head of the secret police. Scientists operated under threat of execution if they failed. Igor Kurchatov led the scientific effort, and they used espionage data to skip years of trial and error. Their first bomb, RDS-1, was nearly identical to Fat Man. Not because Soviet scientists couldn't innovate, because copying a proven design was faster, and Stalin wanted parity immediately. Britain's bomb was driven by imperial anxiety. The UK had contributed enormously to early atomic research. British scientists literally started the Maud Committee that proved a bomb was feasible before the Americans took it seriously. But during the Manhattan Project, the Americans sidelined them. After the war, the McMahon Act cut off all nuclear cooperation, even with allies. Britain was furious. Clement Attlee's government decided to build one independently, in secret, without even telling most of Parliament. William Penny led the effort. Britain didn't have America's resources, so they focused on plutonium production at wind scale and built a simpler implosion device. Operation Hurricane in October 1952 detonated their first bomb on a ship near Australia. Britain was a nuclear power again, but the cost was enormous. The program nearly bankrupted the country. But to British leadership, losing great power status was unthinkable. France went nuclear for exactly one reason: Charles de Gaulle. He believed France could never be truly independent while relying on American nuclear protection. He'd watched Suez in 1956, when Eisenhower forced Britain and France to withdraw from Egypt, and he concluded that only nuclear weapons guaranteed sovereignty. The French program started in secret in the 1950s, but de Gaulle accelerated it dramatically when he returned to power in 1958. French scientists built a gaseous diffusion plant at Pierre-Latte and developed plutonium production reactors. They tested their first device in February 1960 in the Algerian desert, 70 kilotons, larger than Hiroshima. De Gaulle had his bomb, and France had its independence, at least in his mind. France maintains an independent nuclear arsenal to this day, refusing to integrate fully into NATO command structures. China's nuclear program was born from betrayal. The Soviets initially helped. Mao and Stalin signed agreements in the 1950s that included nuclear technology transfer. Soviet advisors arrived, reactors were built, Chinese scientists trained in Moscow. But the Sino-Soviet split in 1960 ended everything. Khrushchev withdrew all advisors and took the blueprints. Mao was humiliated and enraged. He ordered Chinese scientists to finish the work themselves, even as the country descended into famine. The Great Leap Forward killed tens of millions, but resources still flowed to the nuclear program. Scientists were protected because Mao needed them. They succeeded in October 1964 at Lop Nur. The blast was 22 kilotons. China became the fifth official nuclear power. But it came at catastrophic human cost. Mao called it proof of Chinese strength. In reality, it was proof of his willingness to sacrifice anything for geopolitical status. Israel's program is the one nobody officially acknowledges. The Israeli government maintains nuclear ambiguity. They neither confirm nor deny possessing nuclear weapons. But everyone knows. The program began in the 1950s under David Ben-Gurion, who believed the Holocaust proved Jews could never rely on others for survival. France secretly helped. They built a reactor at Dimona in the Negev desert, disguised as a textile plant. When American U-2 spy planes photographed it, Israeli officials claimed it was for peaceful research. It wasn't. The reactor produced plutonium, and by the late 1960s, Israel had assembled weapons. They've never tested one publicly, though some evidence suggests a joint test with South Africa in 1979. Estimates place their arsenal between 80 and 400 warheads. The ambiguity serves a purpose. It provides deterrence without triggering international condemnation. Every Israeli leader maintains the fiction. Every intelligence agency knows the truth. India's path to the bomb was shaped by humiliation. The 1962 border war with China was a disaster. Then, China tested a bomb in 1964. Indian leaders, particularly Indira Gandhi, concluded that regional security required nuclear capability. The program was led by Homi Bhabha initially, then Raja Ramana. Canada had provided a research reactor called Cyrus, supposedly for peaceful purposes. India used it to produce plutonium. In May 1974, they detonated what they called a peaceful nuclear explosive at Pokhran, 12 kilotons. The rest of the world wasn't fooled. It was a bomb. India faced international sanctions, but they'd crossed the threshold. The decision permanently altered South Asian security dynamics. Pakistan's nuclear program was a direct response to India's. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto reportedly said Pakistanis would eat grass if necessary to build their own bomb. The program was led by Abdul Qadir Khan, a metallurgist who'd worked in the Netherlands and stolen centrifuge designs for uranium enrichment. Khan returned to Pakistan and built a parallel program to the military's plutonium effort. The Chinese provided assistance, detailed weapon designs, materials, possibly complete components. When India tested 5 devices in May 1998, Pakistan responded 2 weeks later with 6 tests at Chagai Hills. The subcontinent was now fully nuclearized. It remains one of the most dangerous nuclear standoffs in the world, and much of it traces back to one scientist's espionage and China's willingness to proliferate. North Korea represents the nightmare scenario, a totalitarian state acquiring nuclear weapons despite international opposition. Their program stretches back to the 1950s, when the Soviets trained North Korean scientists. But serious weaponization began in the 1980s. International pressure led to the agreed framework in 1994, which temporarily froze the plutonium program. But North Korea secretly pursued uranium enrichment. When discovered, negotiations collapsed. They withdrew from the Non-Proliferation Treaty in 2003. The first test came in October 2006, yielding less than 1 kiloton, but they kept testing 2009, 2013, 2016, 2017. Each test larger and more sophisticated. By now, North Korea possesses dozens of warheads and has demonstrated intercontinental missile capability. The international community failed to stop them. Sanctions didn't work, negotiations didn't work, and now the world lives with a nuclear-armed North Korea. There's one nation that built nuclear weapons and then voluntarily gave them up. South Africa developed 6 gun-type uranium devices during the apartheid era. They began the program in the 1970s, motivated by isolation and regional threats. Israeli cooperation likely occurred, though both governments deny it. But as apartheid collapsed, the white government under F.W. de Klerk made a decision. They dismantled every weapon. They destroyed the facilities. They invited international inspectors to verify everything. By 1991, before the African National Congress took power, South Africa was nuclear-free. It remains the only nation to independently develop nuclear weapons and completely abandon them. South Africa proves that nuclear proliferation isn't irreversible. So that's how every nuclear nation built its weapons. Not through independent genius, through espionage, collaboration, desperation, and in some cases, pure theft. The physics is well understood now. What prevents more nations from joining the club isn't technical capability. It's political will, international pressure, and access to fissile material. Every nation that wanted nuclear weapons badly enough eventually got them. That should terrify us, because the next country that decides survival requires a bomb will probably get one too. The nuclear age isn't ending. It's spreading. And the only thing stopping faster proliferation is the fragile system of treaties and deterrence we've built. How long that holds is anyone's guess.